Diddy's trial isn't just a legal mess, it's turning into a full-blown Hollywood meltdown. Witnesses are vanishing, jurors are backing out, and prosecutors say Diddy is pulling strings from behind bars. But the biggest shock? A secret list of over 100 celebrity names shown to jurors, including Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, and Lady Gaga. And now, Diddy's targeting the people speaking out. He's reportedly planning to sue his former bodyguard, Gene Deal, the one man who refused to stay silent. Gene has been exposing what he claims are years of disturbing behavior behind the scenes, and now Diddy wants to shut him down in court. Why are A-listers suddenly being linked to the case? Why did one of Diddy's top lawyers quit out of nowhere? And what does Diddy know that has the entire industry on edge? Something massive is brewing behind the scenes, and it's about to explode. Let's take a look inside the trial no one in Hollywood wants to talk about. From the very beginning, it was clear that jury selection in the Diddy trial would be anything but routine. What should have been a straightforward process quickly turned into a display of fear, confusion, and behind-the-scenes pressure. 1. Prospective juror emailed the judge in a panic, asking to be removed from the panel due to concerns for their personal safety and mental well-being. Another was caught withholding information about a separate legal case they were involved in, something that would normally disqualify them immediately. It became clear that this wasn't just any trial. This was a trial people were scared to be part of. The judge, sensing the tension, made a highly unusual move. He delayed the final phase of jury selection until Monday. The reason? He feared that giving jurors the weekend to think about it would only lead to more people backing out. And he was right. Overnight, yet another juror dropped out, citing overwhelming stress. Even the most seasoned courtroom observers noted that they had never seen a trial start off this unstable. The anxiety in the room wasn't just about the legal process. It was about the weight of this case and the powerful man at the center of it. Everyone could feel it. This wasn't just about Diddy, it was about what might come out if the case actually went to trial. And if jury selection alone was this messy, what was waiting in the courtroom could be much worse. Just as the courtroom tried to regain its footing, another blow landed, one that could shake the foundation of the entire trial. Victim 3, a key figure set to testify against Diddy, suddenly vanished. Prosecutors were prepared to reveal her identity the moment she took the stand. But that day never came. She didn't call, she didn't show, and worst of all, no one could reach her. Her phone was off, her location unknown, and every attempt to contact her hit a dead end. At first, prosecutors suggested she might simply be nervous. After all, speaking out in a case this massive would be terrifying for anyone, but behind closed doors, a much darker possibility began circulating. What if she wasn't just scared? What if someone made sure she couldn't testify? This isn't paranoia, it's a pattern. Diddy has a long and well-documented history of controlling the narrative around him. And with over 200 reported attempts to contact witnesses, family, members, and associates, prosecutors started to wonder if this disappearance was more than just cold feet. They feared it was a warning. Even legal experts began calling it what it looked like: witness tampering, the kind that doesn't just shift the case, it corrupts it. And if Victim 3, who was reportedly ready to reveal damning details about Diddy's private life, was no longer willing or able to speak, it raised a chilling question: who else is being silenced? What happened to Victim 3 wasn't an isolated case. It was part of a growing storm of interference. Prosecutors dropped a bombshell in court. Diddy had been contacting witnesses from behind bars. Not just once, not twice, but over 200 times. And these weren't innocent calls. They were part of a calculated effort to control the outcome of his trial, even while locked up in a federal detention center. Diddy didn't make the calls directly. He was smarter than that. He contacted family members, friends, even former employees, asking them to serve as go-betweens. In one case, he asked a family member to conference in a witness, making it harder to trace who was on the line. Federal investigators uncovered this pattern through prison call logs and phone records. They saw multiple accounts, multiple voices, and one consistent thread: silence the accusers. One woman, prosecutors said, received 58 calls in a single week. Another was offered money. Others were warned that things would get ugly if they went through with their testimony. These weren't subtle nudges. They were pressure tactics from a man who once had enough power to make problems disappear, and who might still believe he does. Perhaps the most disturbing account came from Diddy's former bodyguard, Gene Deal. Jean received a message from a mutual contact, someone close to Diddy, who told him, "Enough is enough." The tone wasn't casual, it was a veiled threat. Jean later revealed that he knew what that message meant: shut up or pay the price. But Jean refused to back down, and now he's one of the few insiders willing to speak publicly about what's really going on. This is the kind of case that doesn't just play out in court. It plays out in whispers, shadows, and backdoor conversations. And it's becoming clearer by the day. Diddy's influence doesn't stop at the cell door. What once seemed like salacious rumors whispered behind velvet ropes are now surfacing as horrifying allegations, backed by witnesses, documents, and years of silence broken. Diddy's so-called freak-off parties weren't just industry gossip. According to testimonies, they were drug-fueled, high-security gatherings where women, and in some cases, possibly minors, were exploited under the guise of elite entertainment. One woman claimed she saw girls dressed like Harajuku Barbies, thinking they were performers, until she realized they were far too young. Others described what appeared to be trafficking operations cloaked in luxury, drugs, and celebrity. These weren't just parties. They were playgrounds for the powerful, built on fear and silence. To keep things quiet, Diddy allegedly forced attendees, including staff, models, and even fellow artists, to sign NDAs so airtight they couldn't speak a word without risking lawsuits or worse. Former insiders said women working for Bad Boy Entertainment were loaned out to music executives as favors or bargaining chips. Even Diddy's own artists were reportedly pressured to comply, with their careers hanging in the balance. But one man never signed an NDA: Gene Deal. That's why his voice matters. According to Gene, Diddy's behavior at these events was so reckless and degrading, it drove away even his most loyal team members. In one story, Gene recounted how he frantically searched for his girlfriend at a New Year's party, only to find her passed out in a car after drinking spiked champagne. She said she didn't feel right after her first glass, and yet Diddy acted like this was normal. His inner circle either kept quiet or signed away their right to ever speak again. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a system. And with the NDAs slowly unraveling, we're only beginning to understand how deep that system ran. As shocking as the allegations are, the courtroom took a darker and more unsettling turn when jurors were handed a list, over 100 names long. These weren't random witnesses or minor players. These were celebrities, A-list actors, cultural icons, and not a single one had been publicly linked to the case. Until now. The list included names like Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, Mike Myers, and even Robert Downey Jr. Jurors were asked if they recognized any of them, and if knowing them would affect their impartiality. The question wasn't, "Do you know what these people did?" It was, "Can you stay neutral if they come up?" That alone raised a terrifying implication. Why were these names on the list at all? The court offered no explanation, and prosecutors remained tight-lipped. But outside the courthouse, speculation exploded. Had these celebrities attended the infamous parties? Were they part of sealed testimony? Were they witnesses? Or something else entirely? And then came a revelation that shook the legal world. Lady Gaga, one of the biggest global pop stars and a longtime client of the powerhouse Grubman law firm, reportedly gave the firm an ultimatum: drop Diddy or lose her. Days later, Diddy's 20-year relationship with the firm was over. No press release, no graceful exit, just silence, and a very public split that reeked of urgency. This wasn't a coincidence, it was damage control. A quiet scramble by Hollywood insiders to separate themselves before the spotlight turned to them. Diddy might be the one in court, but the ripple effect was already spreading, and for the first time, it seemed like the public was beginning to understand just how many big names might be circling this imploding empire, because when one celebrity falls, the rest run for cover. When a high-profile client like Diddy loses his legal team mid-trial, it's not just inconvenient, it's catastrophic. One of the biggest signs that the case is slipping out of control came when his longtime attorney, Anthony Rico, filed a formal motion to withdraw. Rico didn't mince words. He stated that under no circumstances could he continue representing Diddy while staying within the bounds of legal ethics. That's not just a red flag, it's a siren. And this wasn't just any lawyer. Rico was part of the legendary Grubman, Shire, Meiselas, and Sachs firm, one of the most powerful entertainment law firms in the world. Their client list reads like a Grammy stage roll call: Madonna, The Weeknd, Bruce Springsteen, Usher, Mariah Carey, even Lady Gaga. For over 20 years, Diddy had been one of their crown jewels. But not anymore. Rumors swirled that Lady Gaga herself had delivered the final blow. According to reports, she threatened to leave the firm entirely unless they cut ties with Diddy. And they did. Fast. The firm didn't even try to publicly defend him. No statements, no spin. They dropped him and moved on. Behind the scenes, legal experts said what everyone was thinking. Diddy had become a liability. Too many allegations, too much evidence, too much heat. No firm wanted their name attached to the storm that was about to hit. The fact that it happened so quickly, after 2 decades of loyalty, suggests they saw something coming that the public hadn't fully grasped yet. Lawyers don't abandon billionaires unless the case is unwinnable. And with his team disbanding, Diddy wasn't just losing support, he was losing the illusion that he could buy his way out of this. And the question everyone's now asking is, if his own lawyers are running, what do they know that we don't? Just when it seemed like the walls couldn't close in any tighter, whispers began circulating through legal circles. And they weren't just rumors. Multiple sources suggested that Diddy had been offered a plea deal by federal prosecutors. But this wasn't your average deal. This was a trade, one that would require Diddy to turn over names, details, and evidence on the powerful people he allegedly worked with. And almost immediately, high-profile figures began acting strangely. Within days of the deal rumor breaking, Bishop T.D. Jakes, one of the most influential religious leaders in the U.S., announced he was stepping down as head of his Dallas megachurch. On the surface, he cited health reasons, but many couldn't ignore the timing. This was a man with deep industry connections, known to have counseled celebrities, executives, and yes, even Diddy. His departure sent shockwaves through both religious and entertainment communities. Was he mentioned in that sealed evidence? Was he warned that more subpoenas were coming? No one knows for sure. But what's clear is that Diddy's potential deal rattled people far outside the courtroom. You see, this isn't just a trial about abuse or trafficking. It's about the network that allowed it all to happen. If Diddy names names, whether in court or behind closed doors, it could detonate careers across Hollywood, music, fashion, and politics. The people in Diddy's orbit weren't just bystanders. Some of them were enablers, others were witnesses. And a few? They might have been participants, so if Diddy decides to take the deal, he won't just be saving himself, he'll be taking others down with him. As the prosecution built its case, Diddy's legal team took a sharp turn, and the strategy was as bold as it was controversial. In a surprising courtroom reveal, Diddy's lawyers announced they wouldn't be denying the abuse allegations. Instead, they planned to admit that there was violence between Diddy and Cassie, but they claimed it was mutual. According to the defense, Cassie wasn't a victim, but an aggressor. This wasn't a denial. It was a redirection, a calculated attempt to muddy the waters, confuse the jury, and shift the blame. The legal team even stated they would introduce cell phone footage allegedly showing Cassie being physically confrontational, hoping to paint the relationship as toxic on both sides. But here's the problem. The public had already seen the surveillance video. The one where Diddy chased her down a hallway, punched her, and dragged her to the ground. No audio, no cuts, just brutal footage. To make matters worse, Diddy's team claimed that video was doctored and that they had a longer version that would contextualize the assault. Prosecutors immediately pushed back, warning the court about attempts to distort evidence and reframe narratives in bad faith. As if that weren't enough, Diddy's defense team introduced yet another explanation. He was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and therefore shouldn't be held fully responsible for his actions. They planned to call a medical expert, who would testify about how intoxication affected Diddy's memory and behavior during the time of the assaults. In essence, they were arguing that he was too high to understand what he was doing. That's when prosecutors made their move. They filed motions to block the doctor's testimony, calling it a desperate attempt to excuse criminal behavior with pseudoscience. They also reminded the court that Diddy's drug use had been ongoing for years, and if anything, it strengthened the prosecution's case. Because if someone has a pattern of violent behavior under the influence, that's not a defense, that's a motive. The message was clear. Diddy wasn't just running out of excuses, he was running out of time. With his legal strategies crumbling and public support slipping away, Diddy made one last desperate move. He tried to erase the evidence. His legal team filed aggressive motions to suppress nearly everything: search warrants, electronic data, even call logs from his time in jail. Their argument? That the warrants used to raid Diddy's homes in Los Angeles and Miami were unconstitutional and based on distorted facts. But prosecutors weren't buying it. In response, they submitted a trove of evidence showing that the raids were not only justified, they were critical. Inside Diddy's homes, investigators recovered digital files, photos, encrypted messages, and hard drives allegedly tied to the abuse and trafficking claims. His iCloud was also searched, revealing conversations and documents that connected Diddy to the same FreakOFF parties and witness manipulation schemes outlined by former staffers and accusers. And it gets worse. Leaked prison records revealed that Diddy had used the phone accounts of at least 8 other inmates to keep contacting people on the outside. In one documented instance, he called a woman more than 50 times in a week, even after being warned to stop. Another key moment came when prosecutors exposed how Diddy allegedly paid one witness to post a carefully written statement to Instagram, an attempt to sway public opinion and plant doubt in the minds of potential jurors. This wasn't just defense, it was obstruction. Then came the final blow to his credibility. It was revealed that Diddy had been frantically trying to destroy digital evidence in the weeks leading up to the raid. According to investigators, his team wiped devices, deleted backups, and scrambled to shut down old accounts. But the feds got there first, and what they found painted a damning picture. This wasn't a man trying to clear his name. It was a man trying to cover his tracks. And now, with suppression denied, every file, every message, and every voice memo might be heard in court. The secrets Diddy tried to bury are about to be dragged into the light. By now, it's clear that this trial isn't just about Diddy, it's about everyone orbiting around him. And the prosecution just gave the world a glimpse of how wide that circle might be. During jury selection, the court presented a confidential list of names that could be referenced during the trial. Over 100 names. Some celebrities, some executives, some completely unknown to the public. Many weren't even mentioned in the lawsuit, yet they were flagged as potentially relevant. Why were they included? That's the million-dollar question, and it's what has Hollywood on edge. Among the names were Michael B. Jordan, Kanye West, Mike Myers, and Robert Downey Jr. While none of them are accused of wrongdoing, their inclusion on that list suggests one thing: they may be tied to witnesses, locations, or evidence. Even their mere association with Diddy through parties, collaborations, or social circles could be enough to draw them into the courtroom spotlight. And that spotlight, it's only getting hotter. Insiders are already whispering about A-listers, lawyering up, brand deals being reviewed, publicists working overtime to scrub connections. It's a full-scale reputation lockdown because no one knows what the next testimony or leaked document might reveal. And it's not just entertainers. Politicians, pastors, billionaires, some of them allegedly present at those FreakOFF parties, are bracing for impact. Diddy's fall isn't happening in isolation. The bigger the trial becomes, the more it threatens to topple an entire network of power and protection. This is a man who once sat at the top of the industry, throwing exclusive events, moving millions, and working with the most influential figures in the world. If he starts talking, or if the evidence connects, others, they're not just looking at scandal, they're looking at legal exposure, indictments, and career-ending revelations. And here's what no one's saying out loud. The list shown to jurors is likely just the first wave. So, as Diddy prepares for trial, the question hanging over the entire entertainment industry is no longer if someone else will fall, it's who goes next. What began as a single lawsuit has spiraled into something far bigger, an unraveling of power, silence, and secrets that have defined parts of the entertainment world for decades. Diddy isn't just fighting for his freedom, he's fighting to keep a collapsing empire from dragging others down with it. But with witnesses vanishing, lawyers fleeing, and new names emerging every week, it's becoming painfully clear. The damage is already done. This trial has exposed more than Diddy's dark past. It's exposed how influence can corrupt justice, how money can silence victims, and how fame can shield predators. Until it can't. Now, the very machine that once protected Diddy is falling apart in real time. And no amount of PR, intimidation, or legal maneuvering seems to be working anymore. Jurors are afraid. Witnesses need protection. And celebrities are scrambling to distance themselves before the next headline drops. Even the most powerful names in Hollywood are no longer untouchable because this case isn't about gossip anymore. It's about accountability. And with every court date, every leaked document, and every brave testimony, the cracks in the system grow wider. Sean "Diddy" Combs might be the one sitting in court, but he's not alone. There's an entire world of power players watching nervously from the shadows, hoping their names aren't next. So the question isn't just whether Diddy will fall. The real question is, how many will fall with him? If you made it to the end of this video, drop a comment and let us know what you think. Is this the beginning of a full Hollywood takedown? Whose name do you think will come up next? Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more updates, because this story is just heating up. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.